Welcome to Talk, Teach and Learn, an EdTech podcast brought to you by Firefly, the trusted platform for whole school engagement. Helping schools deliver a unified school experience, Firefly offers schools a way to provide better experiences for everyone through a simpler, more joined-up way for the school community to work together. If you're a teacher or school leader looking to learn more about how you can consistently use technology to improve your teaching and learning strategies and classroom management, then you've come to the right place. I'm your host, Rob Eastman from Firefly Learning, and this is our second episode where we'll be reflecting on the experiences of schools over the last 12 months and considering what lessons we might have learnt ready for the year ahead. I'm delighted to be joined for this session by Stuart Jackson from the Erskine, Stewart, Melville schools in Edinburgh. Hi, Stuart. Thank you for coming along today. I wonder... No, it's great. It's nice to have a proper expert on the line rather than just me burbling on. So whilst we've got you, obviously I know you very well. I've known you for years. But would you just, like to tell the rest of us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do at ESMS?
So I've been at school for 15 years, 10 years teaching physics, and then I was lucky enough to pick up the IT director's role, and I attended a conference that you ran, Rob, 5 years ago, which allowed me to see how important Firefly was at the centre of that. I'm not just saying that because we're on a Firefly podcast, but it is one of those Ron Seal products. So I, in a school of 2,700 people, we've got 10 in the IT team, and Rob says, good to hear somebody who knows what they're talking about. I actually don't. I am the physics teacher in the department who can sell the message, or tries to sell the message, to the teaching staff and the support staff. But actually how we use Firefly and whether we're effective at it or not is largely down to Simon Luxford-Moore, who sadly can't be with us today because he's in Florida, because the school has broken up. But one of the joys of being support staff is those holidays don't befall me. But yeah, so thanks for having me along. No,
it's good to have you. And although you say, you're not an expert, as a humble physics teacher myself, one of the key things I think that is important, and what's good to see that you're doing there is you are, if you like, you're a teaching expert, as much as any of us are teaching experts, but actually you bring the teaching and learning sort of viewpoint into the room when it comes to how we implement technology, rather than being someone who is an IT specialist first, actually teaching and learning, and therefore the importance of having that at the forefront of our minds when you're introducing technology, I think is a key thing. So definitely don't do yourself down. We physicists need to stick up for ourselves. But I was going to say, the last year has obviously been, it's surely felt significantly different from the two that preceded it. If nothing else, the kids were in school a little bit more than they might have been prior to that. How's it been, up there with the kids and the families and the teachers, I guess, at ESMS?
So we're a 3 to 18 at school, so 3 years old right through to 18. So how we talk about this for a 3-year-old is wildly different to how we talk about it for a 17-year-old. But I think if I was to take a year group, one of our biggest challenges is trying to keep the delivery consistent. So in primary 7, which is the upper level of our primary school, our junior school, we're teaching to 10, 11-year-olds. And in that group, we've got 8 classes. There's 208 in the year group. And we need to keep the delivery on point for each of the classrooms, so they're moving in parallel with one another. Mm-hmm. That, in some way, stifles some initiative with 1 or 2, and squashes some of the ability to do things with a bit of flair. It's amazing that the junior school managed to succeed in delivering quality education across the junior school. They're never struggling to fill in the upper echelons of the junior school. So I think the biggest challenge for us over the course of this year has been trying to keep the delivery consistent. If I was to flip then, Rob, to talking about the senior schools, the senior school heads of departments really are mini czars, and how they teach in drama is wildly different to how they teach in physics. And it should be the case, because you've got a subject matter expert deciding how they're going to deliver that teaching learning content. And whether they use OneNote, or whether they use Chaucer, or whether they use a YouTube video and then analyse is entirely up to them. So it would be wrong for us to tell them how to do it. We're just there to give them the tech options in the IT department that allow them to go forward and flourish. And that in itself is a challenge because we want to keep the delivery platforms to a minimum. And I'll probably talk about that a bit later. But the greatest challenge for us, I think, is trying to keep the parents happy and not allow a superb teacher to expose themselves as superb while not bringing along the anchor.
Yeah. Yeah, and how have your teachers been? I mean, have they been different this year? They've had a year of, I mean, particularly from your perspective, I suppose, enforced CPD almost. They've we know from schools we've been talking to, there's been a lot of experimentation with technology, a lot of actually, no, that's not fair. Not just with technology, but actually different ways of doing things. Have the teachers come in, weary of using tech and online and resource or what have you, or actually have they come in sort of energized and with a whole bunch of new stuff that they can play with?
So I think it's much more of the latter. There will be, with a few hundred teachers, some of both camps that you've described.
Yeah.
But actually, we're, as a body, more like music festival goers going to Glastonbury for the first time in 3 years. We're all over having the children in the classrooms because that's what we've entered the profession to do. So the majority are very happy with that. I can think of a couple of examples who I won't name just now, but they know who they were if they were listening to this, of people who were just about to retire, who were using Teams breakout rooms and calling them clever things and allowing children to be in breakout rooms in virtual classrooms, which was mighty impressive given that they were retiring in the summer before we started this year. I just take my hat off to them because if I was just about to retire, I might not have invested my time and energy in that way. I'd like to think I would, but I might not have done. And I think it's mighty impressive that we've got teachers that are now saying, right, rather than have you write on a piece of paper what runs you did, let's use Strava to upload a logbook of what you've been doing in exercise terms. And you can't hide from that, which is great, but you're using technology really intelligently. And we've got plenty of examples like that where, I use the department's PE, drama and music quite often in that they do teach differently to physics, chemistry and biology, and trying to allow them to all do it successfully without being a dictatorship is a bit of a challenge. The way we achieve that, I think, is we allow the teachers to dictate. So the staff delivering the lessons are the masters of their own delivery. And that, I think, is really quite powerful because we're not telling them you've got to do it like this, you've got to do it like that. Sometimes we have to do that, but we keep that where we can to an absolute minimum. And that allows us to overcome some of the challenges where we might have found it more challenging over the course of the last year, because I think all the heads of departments are on board and the year group leaders in the junior school are on board with that strategy because they know they're just given the power to go forth. And that is the output of the school. It's not having buildings that are secure or watertight or roofs that work. It's actually delivering high quality children at whatever stage they leave us.
And what I think is also interesting there is that, funnily enough, the departments that you kind of called out in particular, art and drama and music and what have you, which, by their very nature are more creative. Because that is the nature of the subject they're teaching. It's the nature of the individual, and therefore, actually, what you're describing, they're freeing them up and empowering them to look at how they want to teach and how they want to be innovative in that way. You're harnessing the creative abilities of your most creative staff, if you like, in that regard, and that means everybody can benefit from that. Everybody can learn from that, which is great to see. So what were the major moments in the year then? What were the things that you look back on? I suppose both sides. What were the things you look back on and think, that was a key event, that was great, and that maybe we need to learn something from that. So what were the big things?
So the same thing really is a key event, but allowed us to learn a little bit, and that would be moving towards individual devices for pupils. Uh-huh. So I think we were close to getting the comms right so that parents knew what was happening and were on board with the pricing structure, but we didn't quite manage it. We've got a few parents who didn't quite pick up on the fact their children are going to be issued with devices in August and they're going to be paying for them directly. That we weren't as clear as I would have liked. That's my fault. That's on me. But we do have from primary 6 right the way through to senior 6. So that's 1,950 pupils being issued with a device this summer. They arrive in 4 weeks' time, and they are prepped via Intune. I'm very proud of this, mostly because it's not me. I'm not singing my own praises. It's the work of others in the IT team. And it's mighty impressive that they've moved away from Windows delivery and were able to think outside the box and using Autopilot and Intune to actually build these devices with a sort of zero-touch approach. I'm very proud of that. That was a campaign that we started 3 years ago where we said, look, Glasgow Council have fallen to one-to-one devices. They were followed by Falkirk and the Borders and Fife and Edinburgh. And most of the independent schools around us are a bring-your-own device. In fact, I don't know one that's not a bring-your-own device. They're all hybrid of Chromebooks, laptops, Apple Macs in the classroom. So I'm actually, it's almost fluke, but we were convinced that the stand and deliver teaching style, not totally that, because people move around the classroom and our teachers are using laptops. So the laptops can be moving around the classroom while delivering to an active screen. But the way in which we've managed to hold the line and not introduce technology to the classroom has flukily meant that we now have solid-state hard drives. We now have batteries approaching 16 hours for one device. We have drop test. We have spill-proof keyboards. We have touch screens. And we're getting all that for, okay, it's 600 quid over 3 years. But that's still, I think, reasonably good for us taking all the pain away from the parent of choosing a device, the children having multiple different devices in the classroom. And I know there'll be many schools out there that aren't as fortunate as us, but we have been fluky in this, in that we held off, and then we did a study, we involved parents, we consulted with pupils, staff, and the whole shebang, the whole 9 yards to try and find out whether this was a good approach or not. Luckily, through the pandemic, everyone agreed the children need these devices. They definitely need them in S6. They definitely don't need them in nursery. So what point was the entry point was our only difficult decision. And then whether we were going to provide them or not was our next sticking point. And I'm pleased to say that is kicking off in 4 weeks' time. That's a major gulp for us. It would have been much easier to go bring your own device. But to have my skint children sat next to somebody who's got a shiny MacBook Pro is not something we wanted to have in the classroom. So that potential barrier was something I'm very pleased to say we've been able to remove by the governing council saying, yep, we'll buy those laptops for £1 million and then we'll just lease them to parents.
Yeah, we did something similar when at my last school actually, and we went for the one-to-one device rollout rather than the BYOD, and I think we experienced some of the things that you were describing there, but I think the benefits that we felt from it, in as much as anything as well, you didn't get into any of those sticky discussions about what the child can put on the device or how, when you want to put policies in place about how the device will be used, you didn't have that kind of grey area. Well, actually, it's their laptop or it's their tablet. So how do you impose what you want, the way you want it used, and so on and so forth. And the other great bit that you're going to experience in a few weeks' time is you become Santa Claus to every child in the school. That's what it feels like to them. But yeah, I think BYOB has its own place. But I think there is once you've overcome the hurdle and the complications of actually finding a system where you can do a one-to-one rollout. It does make it a lot easier down the line, and it's if nothing else, just the consistency of use is quite a big thing. I think that makes life a lot easier for the teachers, which is a big thing. So yeah, no, that is a fairly significant event. That's a big step, like you said, for the school to take.
Yeah, and I'm very pleased we had the backing of the principal, the governing council, the bursar, that. So when we've had 12 parents complain to say my daughter or son has, and invariably it's a MacBook Pro, And they say they want to bring that into school, probably because the son or daughter says, I'd much rather bring this in than the school device. Yeah. And the parents actually have, some not happily, but they've all swallowed the pill and said, okay, we'll support that.
Yeah, no, it's good to see it. And I think with the other important thing that you mentioned there was it's come from, there's buy-in right from the top. You know, he said the governors are on board. Everyone is pushing the same direction, and I think that's the same with any new strategy that you pull in. There's got to be really clear direction and leadership, saying this is what we're going to do. This is why we're going to do it. It's important. Let's get it right. Which is really good to see. So you know, with that in mind. You know, you've brought those in with a very particular strategy, which you're presumably going to kick into place, you know, in the next academic year, at the end of the summer. What sort of things are you looking to do differently to kind of take advantage then of this new mobile environment that you're going to be working in?
So we've got heads of departments, therefore, who are saying to us, how should we use these? And then we've got heads of departments who are saying, I'm going to use it like this.
Yeah,
and we're here to help both. So we do have heads of departments who say, this is the strategy for us, and it's not going to involve technology. And I say that's absolutely fine. You choose. You're the deliverer of your material. Nobody's going to tell you you're wrong. It's up to me to fight the parents and say, look, I'm really sorry, but we've got 3 of 12 subjects who aren't using the technology a great deal. But that doesn't mean to say your child doesn't get all the advantage of it outside the classroom. Because you're not going to use it for core PE, or you're not going to use it for games anyway. You might video the odd piece and analyse, but actually you're better off training the teachers how to, or the pupils actually, training them how to video, upload, and then analyse. And that journey of then sharing is quite powerful. And it's a life skill, isn't it? So it's not just about the classroom.
Yeah, and actually that just quickly on that point, I think that is quite an interesting. There's an interesting lesson there for the teachers and the students. So sometimes I think teachers feel that they're almost beholden to use the technology. We need to use it as much as we possibly can because that shows that I am a modern, dynamic, and innovative teacher. And the students many students are used to being welded to their technology 24/7 anyway. And so showing them that actually it is not something which has to be used all the time. And in fact, actually, it's better if it's not used all the time. But it has a very specific role to play. That's a valuable life lesson for everyone that's involved in it. So yeah, it's good to see you push in that direction.
Yeah, both our maths departments have chosen not to deliver their subjects with e-books. They didn't want the children to have to look at a screen to pick up the questions. Now, that might change in a year, but I'm not here to tell them they're wrong. Because they definitely wouldn't follow me into battle if I did. So
that's right.
I'd much rather support them in their approach and say, right, thank you for letting me know. I understand your reasons. And how the children use OneNote and seeing graphs change with the y-axis and the x-axis and the change of the gradient of the line is something you can do electronically. And they understand how to do that well. They're using OneNote to deliver their lessons, and you can get very interactive with that. So I don't have a problem with them using the technology. How they deliver with it, the power of writing, the letter A. There's a whole brain hand, arm involved. It's massively powerful. So I don't need to dictate in that area. I say this in a way that it's a bit like Robert Mugabe, but it's true. I want the teachers to realise the correct path, probably with the help of the children, because the children will tell them, and then we'll adapt as we move forward, rather than me say it's OneNote everywhere and just upset a whole load of people.
Yeah, and that's also I think another key thing you mentioned there is that it's hard work and it's tiring, but technology is changing all the time, and therefore you need to be ready to, like you were talking about there, review it, adapt it, change your strategies, and not just technology is changing all the time. I mean, the latest teaching ideas and theories, they're constantly evolving, and so I think always being ready to review, Has that worked? What's not working? And obviously, I guess, talk to the students, talk to the parents, see what's working, so that you're getting that full picture. And again, I suppose, a joy of technology is, well, it's relatively easy to do that using technology. You can fire out those surveys and get the data in fairly quickly.
Yeah, very powerful. Interestingly, on this sort of topic, I spoke to a team at Duolingo, which is a piece of software that helps promote languages. And I was particularly interested in their thread of, if engagement is 0, they can guarantee the learning will be 0. So, you're not going to learn a French verb if you're not even engaged to see how it's spelt, hear how it's spoken, all of that. And the power of technology over the course of the last few years is allowing the audio to pick up the spoken word of the user and then correct it there and then, which is something that our teachers will jump on board with. They just haven't yet, not in our school necessarily, but all teachers haven't yet realised that Microsoft Word's Dictate has progressed massively in the last 2 years. And this is happening, as you say, all the time, and we need to be alive to that.
Yeah, and
physics. Because physics epicals MA was a constant.
Yeah, no, I know. No, although I've got to admit, when I was teaching, I remember teaching my GCSE classes. I'm thinking, God, blimey, the stuff we do now. Because I was then reflecting back to the stuff that I did in the mid to late 80s, shall we say, as a student. But just thinking, it's so different. There's this. There is an element of stuff that you would have looked at 40 years ago that felt like something out of Star Trek, and now that's what you talk about in the classroom. And I think technology as well. I remember when I first started implementing whiteboards in a classroom, and thinking, what would be really great was if you could walk in with like a palm top computer that you can it just connects to the projector without you having to have all these wires and cables and stuff. Imagine what that'd be like. Every teacher can carry it, and then lo and behold, we do get there in the end. But you wouldn't be able to even imagine the kind of things that you can now do with technology. 20 years ago, it is spectacular. So with all this, exciting new stuff that's coming out and the exciting new project that you're involved with, what are you most looking forward to in the year ahead? And you are allowed to say a summer break first. We'll take that as read. But let's say within the school, what are you most looking forward to seeing?
So one of the areas we've been bad over the course, there's many areas, but one that we've been bad at recently is having too many platforms, too many pieces of software. So School Cloud do such a good job of a parents' evening that we buy that and we use that very successfully. Socks do such a good job of sports, displaying them teams, times, dates, where so well that we have to have plugins like that. But actually, some of the complication of what's the difference between SharePoint and OneDrive and OneNote and Microsoft Teams, and why would I use one over the other? And bring into that why we use Firefly and where Firefly is advantageous. It becomes, that's the challenge, I think, is reducing the number to just a few. And I accept that the few is going to be always more than I'd like. And I think that's the challenge going forward.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I remember I wrote an article. We're a bit of a Bond household. We love a bit of James Bond, and it must have been one of his most recent. It might have been, or was it Casino Royale? Anyway, it was a Daniel Craig one, and we got to the end of it, and we just thought, well, where have all the gadgets gone? Because basically they give him this little radio locator and his trusty Walther PPK, and there's no submarine cars, there's no jetpacks, there's none of the stuff which you always used to associate with Bond. And I kind of thought, well, maybe teaching is kind of similar. We've gone through that phase of there's all these gadgets and all this hardware and all this software and so on and so forth. But actually, perhaps like 007, what we're doing now is looking to what is it that the teacher needs to allow them to be the best version of themselves in the classroom. Not to replace them in the classroom, not to introduce unnecessary glitter and magpie toys and so on and so forth, but actually what do we just have to put in the hands of the teacher so that they can be as brilliant as they want to be, so that they can be that teacher that they want to be. And sometimes keeping it simple.
Sorry, that's probably Office 365 and Firefly. And your team have worked very hard over recent years at making sure there's single sign-ons for lots. And we have a number of different dashboards that we're running at the school. And a senior school dashboard, for example, will have 16 different icons on the right-hand side. Most of us have the layout the same, but on the right-hand side, right of tasks and timetables, is a number of shortcuts to other things. And it's really clever the way Firefly is our Google. We go to Firefly for everything. And then from Firefly, you go to your MIS, you go to SOCs, you go to parents' evenings, you go to whatever it be, a room booking or a child protection video or something you want to advertise front and centre is right there. And I've heard other schools say, yeah, but actually you could use SharePoint instead of Firefly. I couldn't, because it's too complicated to permission. And I'm using it reasonably often. So to have a simple virtual learning environment which allows even our least confident teachers or support staff to be able to permission a page and know that isn't going to get seen by pupils is really, really good. And it never breaks. It never struggles to show a page. It never struggles. The links that are broken are our fault for them being broken. They're not Firefly. So it's one of these Ron Seal products. And it's worth me saying, Rob, and I know you've heard me wax lyrical about how good Firefly is before, but we spend, I just kind of do the maths in my head, but I don't want to give too much away. We spend less than 0.1% per pupil of our income on Firefly. And it adds, if you were to think of the delta of contribution to parents and pupils and staff, it's only the pupils that are paying for it. But if you would add it up, it's phenomenally powerful. Whereas, we're paying more to some other pieces of software that don't do anywhere near as good a job. There's lots that I've mentioned that are very cheap, very, very good value for money. Yours is expensive, but actually it does exactly what we want it to do. And
that's good to hear, and good to hear that you're experiencing the simplicity, because simplicity, I think, is one of the things that needs to be at the heart of any technological solution, because your teachers are, well, they're physics experts, or they're music experts, or they're English experts. And that's why you want them in the school, not because they can navigate their way around the most complicated piece of software, or they can make fantastic things happen in, Dreamweaver or anything like that, which, powerful piece of kit. But I want my chemistry teacher teaching chemistry, not spending hours working with a web authoring tool. That I think is a really key part of it, and a really key part of adoption, because teachers know where their priorities lie, and you've got to keep it simple. So I'm seeing, just keeping an eye on the time, and seeing we're kind of coming up to our 30 minutes. So something a little bit lighter, because here we are in July at long last, and it's been a good start to July so far here. Plenty of sunshine. So I think we can safely say that summer might actually be going to arrive in the UK. Hopefully it's not going to be a blink and you'll miss it, summer, but it does seem to be on its way. And it's always good to have a book. It's good to have a book to read on the beach, or whether you're in the mountains, or whether you're at your parents or your in-laws, wherever you might be. Summer, I always think, is a good opportunity to have a decent book to read. So what would your recommendation be, Mr. Jackson, for all the teachers and students and staff out there? Well, not so much the students, definitely the teachers and the staff. What would be a really good recommendation for this summer?
So one of my favourite books of recent years, I wouldn't want to advertise to anyone while I was lying on a beach, because it's a book on how to chop and store wood for burning on a fire, and which has higher calorific value than another. So I wouldn't advise somebody get that, because they'll get some strange looks from others. But you can always go to the Bourne series for a good read. I know what's going to happen. I've read them time and time again. They're a cracking read, and you can never get bored of reading those. Yeah,
and like you said, there's a series of them. So get into the first one, And there are so many good books you read, and you think, oh, I wish there was another one. Well, hey, yes, there is. So once you get started, you'll be on it. And yeah, okay, chopping wood. That probably tells us more about you than you really want us to know. But never mind. It's been an absolute joy chatting to you, Stuart. As always, I'm hoping at some point to be able to get up north of the border again and come and sample Edinburgh hospitality, because I know it's always cracking hospitality up there. I do like a decent glass of whiskey, so that might be another reason that's sitting in my background. But I hope that you and I get a chance to catch it soon. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your time today at the start of the summer break. I hope you managed to get some decent time off sometime soon. And yeah, it's been great to listen to you. Thank you, everybody, for coming along and listening. I hope you found that useful. And we hope to see you again at another one of our podcasts sometime in the future. I'm Rob Eastman from Firefly Learning. This is Stuart Jackson from Erskine, Stewart, Melville schools up in Edinburgh. Thanks, everybody, and talk to you again sometime soon.
Cheerio.